that they are professionals to retrieve you, to like extricate you from the mangles? That's a big question, because we seem not to look at it from a point of it will happen to me. It's like we're living every day on denial until it happens, and of course when it happens, we'll quickly just say Paul and we move on.
Well, Anthony, you paint a very dark picture.
It is dark one.
Because when we talk about disasters, we're talking about loss of life and loss of capacity, because a lot of people live in incapacitation after those who survive. And then I wonder, the essence of architecture, Prof, was so that we can design how we want to inhabit our environment. That's why we have this zoning, we have boroughs, we have estates, we have, to make sure that every time you have a habitation or a population living somewhere, the same way you want to provide water, the same way you want to provide management of sewer system and all that, the same way we should be prepared enough to know that, because disasters, accidents will happen, you'll be able to respond in time, you'll be able to offer the required support. But once we get into now the actual planning of our country, be it a county, be it an estate, at what point do we lose this? Is there no, like you talk of approvals. For a building to get approvals, I would want to imagine there are certain checklists they must satisfy. One, involving even an exit. In case there is a fire, incident. But what is this that does not happen, that allows for these buildings to be put up and compromise a very essential factor of rescue and safety?
Yeah, actually, this is the core area I work in. I've done quite a bit of codes. I'm actually the one who was who did the code for Afghanistan, Kabul, and the whole country. And I've done the code for Malawi, again the capital and the whole country, including rural areas. And we've done the code. We did the revision of the code for Uganda. For some reason, I could not participate in the Kenya one, but I participated as a citizen, which took forever and eventually came out last year. Despite the fact that those who are financing the code told the country that this is the guy we normally, is an expert in this area. And we've worked in a lot of areas. And I also do sit in the International Building Qualities Center, located both at Washington, D.C. and Australia, Canberra. And that is the global space that gives guidelines on building codes and building standards. And if you look at the entire thing, what you always say is that the whole building code, if you look at it, from planning, how you plan the spaces that you live, you get into the materials, you get into the building services, electricity, water, and all those sort of things. The building fabric, the entire code is always about building safety. That's the key thing. It's always about safety of people, and safety from first principles. And Mushiri can tell you, it's not just about sometimes these disasters, the impact is because of the broader environment that the disasters happen in. Yes, of course, we're looking at a collapsed building here, but a common one, like was highlighting, which nobody even notices. I think the media stopped reporting fire disasters, particularly in our case in slums and informal settlements and so on. And if you're asked, the one task that county development control and development approval should be doing is safety, nothing more. As long as they ensure that this document that has been presented will create a safe environment for citizens, and then enforce it, basically we'll not be having any issue, because the safety standards in the code, even the ones we're using now, are very high. The possibility, any basic structure, the structural safety is normally almost 100% extra. So the possibility of that building collapsing is almost zero. In some cases, of course, out there, like in Afghanistan, we look at even things like earthquakes. You know, we look at events that only happen like once. If you look at flooding, we look at 1 to 100 years. You know, worst case scenario.
Yes.
And we plan for it. But like I was saying, the whole of this is made nonsense of when you have a situation where what is being approved is very different from what is being implemented. And why is that the case? Corruption. When people, when counties tell us that they don't have resources, I always tell people, try making repairs on your house. It will take less than 1 hour before some fellow from county will be there.
Yes.
Asking whether you actually have approvals. Yeah. Try painting, just painting, not even whatever. The fellows will be there. So the issue, and it's not just Nairobi, that is everywhere. That is in Kajiado. That is, these days they even go to rural areas. You know, so the issue for me still is really not lack of resources. In fact, we put more resources on these things than ever done in this country. We even put resources for disaster response by law, you know, and those are the resources that get spent. 5% of the county budget is meant to actually go to these things, and this is actually, and that's partly why we need to call out, you know, these guys where it is. Like even this particular building that collapsed. I mean, you're pleading, you've gone and stopped a building from being built because it's violating what was approved.
Yes.
People continue building. And you're not just Omenya, you are the National Construction
government.
Authority.
Yes.
You're government.
Yes.
And as government, then you go to court. And people continue building.
In such instances, Prof, whom should we hold responsible in terms of institutions? Because, as you say, even they had stopped the construction of the building.
Right.
The violation was notable enough.
Right.
Whom should we hold responsible?
You see what happens these days, and I think the road sector is an interesting one, where somebody breaches traffic rules, and by the way, this is not even a government person.
Yeah.
This is just somebody because of the car they're driving, or because, you know, they know someone. They've prayed for somebody in Venezuela. People are removed from the road. So this guy can, and who is removing them from the road? Government. It's police. And we have this situation where, in this country, we are saying if you're rich, if you have money, then you're actually above the law. Government goes to court to try to stop you. So these are the weakness of governance that we are actually talking about. Because really, I look at some of these things, I'm saying, surely, as government, with all the instruments you have, including the instrument of violence and death,
yes,
you cannot stop a crook who is planning to kill people.
So whom do we blame?
But it's government. It is still government because we put a government in place to protect us, and a whole lot of citizens are. Including some fellows in government there, are making nonsense of this. Are basically telling you, do you know whom I am? Really? And look, my friend, do you really know whom I am? Get out of this place. Get out of this place. And that's a person who, in fact, we should be having power over. But yeah, so on one hand, of course, we have the corruption bit.
Yes.
And of course, the other side, we have impunity. They're two sides of the same coin. That there are people who actually consider themselves in this country above the law, and we've seen this thing even on TV. You know, I remember there was a case at some point in Kitengela where somebody, you know, said, "Look here, get out of this place. I'm the friend of the president." And people actually got out of the place.
Wow, Mushiri, we have just a growing concern because you come in after the disaster has happened. You come in to try and clear the mess and correct the mistake, and unfortunately to try and save lives or retrieve bodies. But I'm just wondering whether sometimes you have the latitude to flag disasters that are in waiting.
Yes.
From the position where you sit, because nowadays we even hear that just here around Wilson Airport, some high-rise buildings have come up and they are interfering with the airports. So do you have that latitude? Do you have that space where you could flag and say, as a country, there is a disaster in waiting?
Two answers to this. In a way to speak to the law, not quite. In a way to influence population and communities, yes. So we've done a lot of disaster risk reduction, if you like. That's what I can look into. And for us, localization looks at, let me speak to like flooding, which has also been a big disaster in our country.
And it's coming.
And whenever...
It's coming in April. We'll be dying again.
Whenever the weatherman alerts us or gives us those alerts that it's going to flood downstream in certain areas, then we go out of our way to send triangulated messages to communities. As such, they're able to self-evacuate before the disaster hits. So in terms of influencing, we're big on disaster risk reduction. We're big on localization, where we train the communities on how to respond to their own disasters. Remember, these are their first responders. We want to, and imagine we call ourselves first responders, but you're not. The community, whoever is caught in between that hazard to the level of their vulnerability, then they become the first responder. The moment you see fire in your house and you grab someone next to you and get them out, you're already rescuing. The neighbor, whoever screams and the neighbor responds as a second responder. Whoever now calls out to the police or to our emergency number, which is 199, that's then and only then how we come in as fast responders. But look at it, we are at third level. So we've put a lot of investment into communities by training them in disaster risk reduction and how to save themselves before we get there. Remember, I talked and alluded to the fact that our numbers are so lean vis-a-vis the magnitude and scale of disasters we're having to respond to. So as Kenya Red Cross, the bigger picture has always been disaster risk reduction. How much can you prevent before it occurs to the people, and how do people then deal with it even before we respond out there?
And Mushiri, one of the biggest gaps, I think, is actually two things. One is coordination between national and county governments. For instance, we see now in Nairobi, there's the building menace. Cabinet secretaries from left, right, and sector, speaking. Everybody wants to put a face. And then the second thing is, of course, capacity. And you're decrying the number of respondents, whether first or second or whatever level. Do you think that our government agencies have the capacity to be able to respond to disaster and talk about, for instance, the multi-level of disasters that could happen? Nairobi blows up. Talk about Mandera, something is happening. You go to Busia. What kind of coordination do you see happening? And do we have the capacity, even as we talk about the numbers, the shortcuts that people can share, the feedback? Do we as a country, and have even thought about the multi-level disaster that could happen within a week or at any given time?
Amount of either skills or equipment they're bringing on the table, and who got into the space first. Most counties are also coming up in a good way in terms of coordination, the likes of Mombasa, what you've seen out there. But at the crux of it is still tough, because we don't have an authority which would have specialized units, for instance, for search and rescue. People who would go under the rubble, people who would go under the water to recover. We are reduced at times to the point where, can we call the Navy to come and assist here? But is it that the Navy are just seated waiting for this particular disaster? How about if it happens in Turkana? What is the turnaround time before they get to Turkana? So to answer you correctly,
think about the
our
Garissa,
counties,
the terrorist attack.
and the turnaround time we took. When we have mass casualty incidences, for instance, if we have a train derailing somewhere in Savo and another major disaster in Kisumu, then we'll really be spread thin. I do know, and for some reason, God protects us. When we had post-election violence, it's like all the banditry attacks in the borders stopped.
Yeah.
There were no other shocks around the country. It was just this one big disaster we were managing. You get the drift? So in terms of mass casualty incidences, we still have a long way to go.
Yeah.
It's time for counties to be keen on that 5% which is allocated to disasters and really invest much more. What there is that accidents will occur. We can disaster risk reduce as much as we can, but an accident will occur. And when it happens, then we need the right set of people to respond to this.
I mean, Prof, I want to look at the code that we're talking about from a layman point of view. The codes that you're talking about is all about safety. Right. It is why we write this code to ensure that buildings that you're putting up is safe for inhabitants. It is safe for even for emergency services to access these buildings.
Correct.
Now, here we are looking at a situation where we have built very beautiful buildings and all that, right? But even at the construction period, so there was never follow-up from, say, 4 floors. Was there enforcement officers who came to ensure that this building is up to code, that Y9 or Y10 that is used is that proper steel that was used, you know? Is it the correct mixture of cement that is being used, you know? In terms of curing process, how long has it taken to cure? Because here we're talking, like, if we just look at the building that you're talking about, the initial code was for 12 buildings. It was extended to around 16. You know, it was stopped at some point. And you look at the replication of how many other buildings have gone down in the city, and one would assume that we have sat down and decided to do things right. But you've said corruption is the currency. So from where we sit today, one would say, because we've seen buildings going down, there was an architect on ground, one would assume. There was a structural engineer on ground, right, who are also buttressed by those from the county. But everyone who was in these buildings failed.
Correct.
These bodies that should be there to ensure that enforcement does happen, the architects, the engineers that are there, have they let Kenyans down? And can Kenyans today say we trust our engineers and architects?
You're actually right. In fact, I cannot defend these particular professionals. Let me just explain how in theory, this is meant to work, and how serious professionals then execute buildings. And basically looking at the most common of the failures, because there are the other failures like fire and stuff like that that are built in the code. But let's look at structure and structural failure, which really is the most common of these high-rise buildings. You see, when you do your approvals, you do the architectural approvals, and then you do the structural approvals. And in that structural approvals, you're expected to have the geotech information of the place. And then you're not just meant to send structural drawings. You're meant to do actual structural calculations. And you submit the calculations alongside the drawings, showing how you've dealt with the different forces that are going to act on this building, from the ground conditions to issue the building weight itself, to the issues of the wind loading and so on the building. All those things, the engineer then does the calculations and then proceeds with the specifications, the ones you're talking about now, so that we are clear in terms of, say, the mix of concrete, that this is the correct mix, because we use different mixes depending on the structural purpose of that building element. There are enforcement, again, all those things are done. So basically, the county approves that. Then the next thing that is meant to happen is that the professionals are meant to supervise the contractor to ensure that what was designed is what was built. Yes, that is number one. But secondly, when it comes to issues around strength of materials, the engineer, I'm just isolating this one aspect, is actually meant to be doing regular tests to see that, particularly on the concrete, the steel can be a once-off. but in fact most of the time is not. We just rely on good quality suppliers. But the concrete is normally very critical because many things can go wrong with the concrete mix. You may end up with a situation where there's too much sand, that concrete is weak. You may end up with a situation where there's too much ballast, that concrete is weak. To the even the ratio of water weakens concrete.
Yeah.
So that has to be gotten right, and normally to ensure that that is done properly, we normally get samples. We call them cube tests that then we take for testing. They cost nothing. In fact, the test costs like around 500 shillings.
Yeah.
To do a cube test. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
And you're preventing deaths outside there. And they're expected of buildings. We ensure we do that even for as we do it even for residential buildings because it costs us nothing. Just isolating the cube, and there are very many agencies that do it. We have government agencies that do it, universities do it. You know, a lot of these TVETs have those. They're pretty basic tests. Now we have part of the money that is paid for approval is actually for supervision by the county itself to ensure that you built what you had actually designed.
So,
and I'm stopping there for effect. That is the one thing that I've never seen happen in the whole of my professional life. We pay for it. There's somebody who's meant to come from the county to say, Omenya, your enforcement is this.
Yes.
What you're seeing on the ground is something different. Omenya, your layout is this.
Yeah.
What you're seeing is different. What we normally see in these counties, the enforcement officers, most of them, they'll come on site there, and they will not look at these technical bits at all. They will not look at this technical.
Perhaps because they don't know. They are not well capacitated.
That
to
is
know
true,
what to look for.
and they don't know, and they're not interested. They're not interested in that at all. What they're interested in is very, I would call them very low level compliance that have nothing to do with whatever. Basically, it is quick money.
Yes.
So the fellows will come in and say, Omenya, look, your people don't have PPEs, and give us 20K.
Yeah.
On the site signboard, you've not put the approval number.
No, Prof, I think that's a very key
so we have
thing.
a big gap there.
That's a very key thing,
Yes.
and I think it's something we may want to discuss moving forward. The quality of the the inspectorate department of
Yes.
our county
Correct.
county councils,
Correct.
because they're the ones who should be coming to make sure that this the enforcement that are of quality inspection
Correct.
ought to be happening.
Correct.
However, I want to
And sorry, let me just add something.
right.
This is also where the rain starts beating us, because these guys, one of the things they do is to make money from your non-compliance. So somebody tells you, look, Professor, see nyumba ni kidogo, suongeze room.
Now
we can do this.
I know.
Expand this, do this, so that you don't comply.
Yes.
And then they can get the bribes.
And
So
then
this comes
and
from the enforcement officers?
Exactly.
once you pay,
This
you're
actually
rendered
happens.
as compliant.
So you go in there.
Yeah.
In fact, of course, how it starts is that you yourself are not complying as the developer. What was approved is different from what you're building. And this guy arrives there, and instead of stopping you, what the fellow does, and this I can say on air without any fear of conviction, what the fellow does is to tell you, Professor, kumbe hii ni nyumba yako. Naona mnataka kuongeza hapa kidogo. Mimi ndio niko in charge ya hii mahali.
Ukinipanga tutakuwa
Nitawashughulikia. In fact, sasa mimi ndio niko yeyote akikuuliza nipigie simu.
But Prof, let me ask from a very concerning element. Once they were clearing the wreckage from this Isli incident, at some point they had to stop because they said an adjusted building was also shaking.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we have seen how the houses have grown, as people say, in the Isli area. What are the levels of concern currently, given what has happened? Because if those are two buildings, one has gone down, the other one is shaky. And remember, a few months ago, I think last year, we had to bring down a house in Mombasa
correct.
because of structural concerns.
Exactly.
So how safe is now the Isli area for human occupation? What are the levels of safety from a professional, non-political point of view? Because we are agreeing that the governor has failed,
Yes.
because he's the one who is in charge of the
Right.
county. The CS has failed,
Yes.
the CS housing, who
Right.
is in charge of all
Correct.
these regulations.
Correct.
But now we have to look, because I would want a situation where we don't need Moshiri, because that would mean we don't have disasters, we don't have
Correct.
lives that need to be
Exactly.
saved.
Exactly.
But should he be preparing for more damages to come in?
Oh, yes, definitely.
From Isli?
Oh, what do you mean? I mean, this country,
Yes.
this county, Nairobi, and others,
Yes.
is a disaster in waiting. It is big disaster, because just like we're saying,
Yeah.
we have all these gaps. We cannot guarantee even the buildings. Already, we have National Building Inspectorate. National Building Inspectorate has flagged thousands of buildings, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thousands, not just hundreds. And then there are some buildings that they've already said, no, these ones, please, you should not occupy them.
Yeah, vacate.
And those are in the hundreds already marked. Of course, some people have gone to court against that inspectorate.
Yeah.
But if you look at how the inspectorate works, the inspectorate works on it is not, they don't start from a technical. It's on suspicion, more or less, and basically non-compliance, where they're saying this building really did not comply in basic things, approvals were not done, and so on. A professional wasn't involved, so, and it seems to be having cracks and so on. So it's a suspect building. So the point I'm actually saying here, the suspicious ones are running into thousands. They've already been picked.
Wow.
Mind you, the National Building Inspectorate does not have the resources to look at all the buildings around the country. They only look at the obvious ones, and those are running into thousands.
Anthony,
If you remove the less obvious ones, you know, there are also others that have problems, and the inspectorate has not seen them. Then there are others that have problems that have not manifested yet.
Yeah.
Because there's been no collapse next to them. There's been no. I mean, the loading. You know the way loading works. And compressive loading and building failure. It doesn't happen overnight.
Yes.
Yeah, the stress builds pole. Yeah, so you have a situation where the building is weak structurally, but it can still hold the load for some time. Then, as time goes on, you start seeing the cracks, and eventually it actually comes down. So in my own estimation, actually,
Yes.
and given the way this has been manifesting around, we need to. In fact, I really sympathize with Anthony, because the government has thrown him under the bus, and left him there alone. We are looking at more and more disasters happening, and people not only take shortcuts, but in fact they go to court to protect those disasters, to ensure that the disasters actually happen.
Yeah.
Prof, that's really a grim picture that you're painting. So
It is.
It's the Vituka ground
Yes.
picture, really. But I'm just concerned about the future. So what must we do, especially for a country that emphasizes STEM subjects? You know, you're talking about science, technology, engineering now, mathematics, etc. And of course, the levels of joblessness against the corruption and the compromise
It is
about.
not training. Look at our friends Tanzania. Tanzania, basically, we used to train their engineers and architects here. The association, and Tanzania, in fact, I was involved in their own regulation there and building standards. You can imagine I was involved there. In Kenya, we had these guys, we had the association in the 30s and 40s. The BORACS, the Board of Registration of Architects and Quantity Surveyors, was established in the 50s. So it's not, the issue is not training. So I'll paint for you a picture of how Tanzania does it. And Tanzania may have the many problems, but corruption may be a bit new. So when I was there, I was quite fascinated how they actually were doing it. They didn't have enough professionals, and they didn't have enough enforcement. And I was saying that if there's will, and there's no greed, and there's no corruption from a governance point of view, these are problems that we can solve today, actually, and forget about buildings collapsing.
What must we do?
So this is how Tanzania works. The government agencies decided to then collaborate with professionals, because they themselves didn't have enough
Capacity.
Yeah.
So you go to even a little town like Mwanza here, you find that the regulator, the board, where they're sitting, that's where the Association of Architects is sitting. That is where the association of engineers are sitting. They're all together in that one big space. Now all these guys become agents for compliance, and government has given that. Let me tell you, we live in these places where these buildings are collapsing as professionals, and we see them every day. The only thing is that we have a system that has ensured that the Architectural Association of Kenya has no say. They just come and make noises. The engineers have no say, and those are the guys with the their members are the ones doing that work and stuff. Now, this is how it works in Tanzania. You try to put up a building there. That same morning, the engineers, they are members of the association. They're passing by there. They check, who is this guy? Is he our member? That reaches this entity immediately.
So there is a sense of self-regulation.
You will not, exactly, you will not put up anything, I can assure you. Whether you, first they check the board, are these guys registered? Just the board, the construction hasn't started. And they say, we don't know this guy. We don't know this, whatever. And they take it straight away to enforcement officers and so on. But in Kenya, because of our greed and our suspicion of each other, we are not even using normal capacities that we have. It is not difficult, honestly. It is not difficult. It's not difficult. It's not difficult. Let me say it over and over again. It's not difficult for government to ask Architectural Association of Kenya that, look here, your members are the ones building and they're everywhere. Can they inform us of buildings that don't comply?
Good point,
it is not difficult for government to ask the engineers that your members are the ones doing this engineering work. Can they flag buildings that are not happening? What happens is that we create this institution, we put 2 engineers there, and then we assume that their eyes will be everywhere. The problem in Kenya, and I keep insisting, the problem in Kenya is greed and corruption. And that is affecting our institutions that we have are working.
Thank you, Prof. Mashiri. Now, Prof is painting a picture that we have disasters in waiting. And, numbers are known because buildings have been flagged and, cautions have been thrown. Are you privy to this data? Are you privy to this information? Such that you could know, like you talk about first responders, you start doing the earlier signs of evacuation.
Yes.
Any efforts? Any shared data information, or perhaps any of the affiliates involved in the planning and approval?
For buildings, no. Data generally in terms of accidents we respond to, yes. And as I said again, when you look at, say for instance, by design, the road networks we have in the country, half of the time, even when you look at the accidents occurring, beyond the human element, design also plays a big part.
Yes.
Now, the bit, and we've had it straight from Prof, the bit around how counties invest in disaster risk management and disaster response is a big deal. We have to accept that part of our failure is weren't patriotic enough to refuse to be bribed to not do cut corners. Now we have a situation where we know our people are going to get into trouble. What will you do when you get into trouble? So the bit around training, Kenya Red Cross has the Kenya Red Cross Training Institute for training for emergency medical technicians and pre-hospital care. Again, how much of these kind of schools are they out there training personnel? What number of ambulances, what skill levels ambulance capacities do we have in the country? Beyond what Kenya Red Cross has, we have the basic life support and advanced life support with our emergency plus ambulance service. But which other big ambulance services there? When you look at our counties and the ambulances, the quote unquote,
they don't.
We talk about having. Have we seen the kind of equipment in these ambulances? So let's be real with ourselves. Let's love ourselves more. Let's be more patriotic. If you're the one procuring these ambulances for a county, let them be fit for purpose.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, Mushiri, and I'll ask both of you the same question. Mushiri, I'll ask you in terms of, so here we are today, and if you look at Kenya today, it is not Kenya of 1963. We are seeing tectonic plates moving here and there, and Kenya is splitting in the middle. Professor, you say that initially Kenya, these are not things we were preparing for, but here we are.
Yes, correct.
Are we seeing us putting up buildings that are ready to respond to these shocks? Are we seeing suspended buildings with suspended foundations just in readiness for if it occurs, we are ready? And Mushiri, as well, in terms of this is a new area altogether. We have never seen this happen in the country, but it is. In terms of getting ready for when it happens, are we looking at that and getting ready for that? And in terms of government to boost and assisting you do the same, are we seeing that happen?
No.
Where?
And you can't lose hope. The flip side is that you can't lose hope. The other day we had hazardous material on Wayaki Way.
Yes.
And just to make a call, we are not responding because we're not ready for that kind of biohazard material response. Even as Kenya Red Cross. The only unit is the disaster response unit, the disaster response battalion at the Kenya Army, which can respond to biohazards. Now, when I say no, I'm careful enough to know that there are people who's going to be exposed to things. When we say the building next to the site, the red zone, is also not stable enough, imagine the level of risk you're putting responders in. People who've just woken up to come and rescue, and then you have to risk them. We cannot allow that to happen. So part of our also training and approaches is safer access. Is this place safe enough even for us first, before us conducting any kind of rescues? So I hear you on the challenge ahead, but for us, we can't lose hope. There will always be someone to call and respond, as I said. And the teams are out there. Teams are always training, but praying not to utilize their skills.
Yeah.
Dennis, as Prof comes in, if you allow me to just ask a follow-up question.
Yeah,
so what do I do if I want to be a volunteer for Kenya Red Cross?
Thank you. We have 47 county offices.
Yeah.
You walking into any of the county offices, our toll-free line 1199 is a line you can access, and you'll be given direction to which offices you could go to, which is your nearest office. Again, this same 1199 is a toll-free line for even telecare. So if someone is having stressful day, you can just call, and there'll be a counselor behind the line to handle.
Yeah, Prof.
Yeah, I think we have a big role. Dennis, if you look at our code, this new building code, you'll be surprised. It actually takes care of seismic movements. That's how thorough it is, including potential projected ones. It takes care of those things. So actually, in terms of the knowledge we need, if you needed to design a suspended building, I can assure you, our current code takes care of it.
Yes.
The provisions are there. But now, I went to, and this is a challenge to my professional colleagues. We know the guys in the counties have never even looked at that code, even as they're doing the approvals. I'm sure that I can say. And even professional colleagues, as they're doing designs, they know the designs would work, but they hardly ever go back to the code to say, fine, what does the code actually say? In terms of the requirements and so on. What would ordinarily happen is that the engineers would just put what they consider to be relatively, I would call it practice, and this is what I call lazy practice, and we need and this is a message to professional colleagues. We need to be a little bit more serious. I'll share with you these pictures. You may not be able to see them. These are construction that is just starting, and you're working at foundation level. And if you see the guys in the pictures here, I've just been sent the pictures actually. If you see the guys in the pictures here, they're wearing helmets. They're wearing total protective clothing. They're wearing safety boots, and they're in a parade. They're being given a talk. This is something I do in all my sites. It is done daily. If you don't like it, you go away. It is done for 30 minutes. We have a 30-minute safety conversation on our sites from the time the construction starts to the time the construction will end. And that was saying that some of these things is the values and the habits that we must honestly inculcate. As professionals, and eventually as country. Because where we are currently, we have a situation where we have all this information, but we really do not care that
We
much.
do not care that much.
There's no duty of care. We say nothing will go wrong.
Nothing will go wrong.
I've built many buildings like this. I've used this contractor. He knows exactly what needs to be done and so on.
Yes.
So we really need to go back, to
the basics.
the
pretty much.
basics.
Yes, and I
Yes.
think it is a proper way to end in terms of let us love ourselves more, let us love our country more, and
Exactly.
let us respect the law. And
Exactly.
such disasters will
They'll
will
never
stop
happen.
being things that we experience every other day. Alfred Omenya, professor, policy and governance expert, and an architect, and Anthony Mushiri, Kenya Red Cross Emergency Preparedness and Response Manager. Asanteni sana. It is exactly a minute after 8 a.m. Good morning.
Thank you very much, team.
Yeah. Thank you.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Ushindi with new enzyme technology tackles even the toughest stains. Ushindi, powerful stain removal, because legends deserve a winning claim.
That's the claim of legends.
Behind every headline is a heartbeat. Every story, a pursuit of truth. At the Standard, we go further so you get the facts that matter. And now, we are taking bold journalism to the next level with new membership tiers made just for you. For 25,000 Kenya shillings annually, get the platinum